Yeah.
Just say lol.
What?
I feel like I haven't heard anyone say lol in like so long. Lol.
Sorry. Lol. Kia ora.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Emily.
And this is the Tortured Book Club.
Club.
Today we're sharing our best and worst of 2023. So Emily, you want to start us off with your best?
The first one is Ghosts by Dolly Alderton. This is the first of Dolly Alderton's books I've read. It is basically about a woman in her 30s, broken up from like a really long-term relationship, classic thing that you do in your 30s. And her parents are getting old, and like her dad's having some struggles with like dementia or early onset Alzheimer's, things like that. And then she's got like her best friend who is now getting married and has babies, and the main character is not. She's just kind of chilling, and that's sort of how you can sort of, your lives end up sort of butting heads a little bit, and those relationships, those friendships start changing. And of course, lol, I forgot one of the main bits because who cares about men, but she does date a man in it as well. Anyways, it is really good. Definitely, I think if you are in your 20s or 30s, this is a really good read. Writing's great, the characters are great, I love the character, and so yeah, it was awesome.
Alrighty.
My next one was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. Now I'm remembering, I actually bought this book and gave it to my friend, hoping she would then one day lend it back to me, and she did, and it was as good as I expected. It's amazing. So it's about like a young black woman who is just living her life. She's in her early mid-20s. So lots of fun stuff, as it says, such a fun age. But she basically has a situation where she nannies for a baby for a white family, and she's in the supermarket with the baby one day, and someone accuses her of having stolen the baby. So it's this very common thing that has started happening in the last few years with social media as well, is people filming these events where black people are being harassed for just existing. And yeah, it spirals into a lot of different things. Really great. Again, similar themes of being young, but a lot about what it's like to be a black person in America, what it's like to be in close proximity with wealthy white people. It's just a really good read. Just hits all that really good stuff. Really good discourse about race relations, about social media, about being young.
Yeah, that's great. That
Okay.
sounds really interesting.
It's really good. And my last one is Hand Me Down World by Lloyd Jones, who's a New Zealand author. He did Mr. Pip, which I haven't read, but was his like best book. What?
Ugh, just like had to read that in high school.
Did you?
Oh God.
Was it good?
I don't know. I feel like it was problematic, but I didn't know it at the time.
Okay. Well, this one is about a woman who basically loses her son, her baby, and travels from Africa, North Africa, all the way through to Berlin. And it does one of my favorite things. I love when books do this. The story is told not from her perspective at all. It's through the perspective of all the different people she meets along that journey. And you know that the reason these different people along that journey is sharing their story is because they're talking to this investigator. So you kind of know that something has happened, but you don't know what it is. You just know that an investigator is talking to all these people to find out how this woman got to where she is, to try and find her son. Really good, really a little bit heavy, but pretty heartwarming overall.
What did you rate all these books?
Oh, what did I rate them? Hand Me Down World, 4 stars. Ghosts, 5 stars. Such a Fun Age, 5 stars.
Okay, nice.
Right, Hannah, what were your 3 best from 2023?
My bests, which are very different to yours. So my first one is The Crown of Oaths and Curses, which is book 1 in Jay Bree's new fantasy series. So she wrote a paranormal series that was super popular, and I read 4 out of 6 of those. I couldn't quite, I haven't got around to finishing it. I do think sometimes authors just make their series a little too long, and I don't think it needed to be. I did love it.
when they make a second book. Yeah.
No,
Too
see,
long.
no, absolutely not. Like, don't even come for me. So yeah, The Crown of Oaths and Curses. It's a new fantasy romance. It is fae and witches and war, and we also get like goblins and elves and things like that, which is fun. And it spans, there's 2 novellas that I highly recommend you read before reading book 1. And we get 1 novella from the each main character's POV, and so we kind of get to see into their worlds. And then we get the first book, which is set like nearly 400 years in the future, because they all live extremely long lifespans, right? So they're like 370 years old and that kind of thing, which is also really fun because lots of people have beef with fantasy stories where it'll be like the fae main character, he'll be like 1,000 years old, and then the human or whatever,
Oh yeah, she's like a
love
25-year-old
interest, she's like
girl.
25, and they don't like, it's just, right? So this is really fun because she as a witch is like 370 or something.
Yeah.
They've both lived, like she's lived through a
long
whole
time.
life in another place, which then comes into, and it's enemies to lovers, all those classic tropes. Yeah, and I absolutely can't wait for book 2. So that was 5 stars, 100%. It was like 700 pages. I read it in a day. Incredible. My partner fed my children, so that was good. Like, it was amazing. We're on a theme here with the fantasy romance. So my next best, these are in no order, was Blood and Steel, which is book 1 in the Legends of Thesma by Helen Schroer. So she's a New Zealand author. I don't know if she's from NZ, like originally, but she certainly lives here now, if not. Again, another fantasy romance, another 5-star. We have a whole completely different world here. Obviously, we're following a badass heroine. We've got like trials and training, and it's very like warrior heavy. Blood and Steel is gritty. Like, we're sad. They're not happy, they're not doing well. The realm's not doing well. There's monsters, there's fighting. I really love the relationships, like the friendships in this book, and that carries on throughout the series. So she has, she ends up forming relationships with other warriors, and it's really fun. Usually I don't like it when they're trying to make, when authors try and make the girls like buddies with the guys, but in this case the way that the characters are and the fact that it's kind of got like found family, outcasts coming together vibes, it works because the guys she's friends with aren't like typical warrior males. They don't have that vibe at all. Yeah, and so that's really fun. That's my
Beautiful.
best.
What's your third best?
And then my third best is another fantasy romance. This time it is a YA, so it's quite vanilla, like, and I say that with love, to vanilla. It's These Hollow Vows, which is book 1 in a duology by Lexi Ryan. Have you heard of it?
No.
Oh yeah. So again, we have a love triangle, which is interesting. We have human girl goes to the Fae world, kind of all the classic points. What I really enjoy about this one is that normally I don't like love triangles, but this was done really well across the duology, and it means that you kind of get to see this back and forth between a lot of different characters, and there's lots of plot twists. You're never really sure who you trust, so it's kind of got like mystery vibes. We're not sure who the good guys or who the bad guys are. Yeah, and so that was a really fun read, and that was also 5 stars.
Beautiful. Love it.
Now to the worst.
To the worst. I'll start with the not worst, I guess the second worst, which was actually pretty good and not that bad. Okay. But, you know, obviously, like, everyone's different, but I think a lot of us now are on the vibe that, like, if I really don't like a book, I don't read it.
Yes.
Like, and I'm probably not going to finish it.
Yeah.
So if I finish it, it's usually at least a little bit, I don't know, something. One of mine was See What I've Done by Sarah Schmidt. This is a fictional telling of the Lizzie Borden murders, which is a kind of famous murder in England.
Never heard of it.
No, and to be honest, I hadn't. So I picked it up not realizing it was based on a true thing. There's like a little rhyme that became quite famous after this. Spoiler alert, but again, if you know the case, then you know what happened. That the daughter killed both her parents. The issue is, I guess, is that it is...
But the book was bad.
Again, it's not like it was that bad, but I think figuring out why she maybe killed her parents, it just kind of didn't hit enough for me. Like, I was just like, I still don't think that. You weren't sold. I think there's still something we're missing here on why she did that. Yeah, I wasn't sold on that we got a good explanation or a good journey of how she got from, you know, A to killing her parents. And the characters, I didn't find them that interesting. There was like a maid, which was kind of interesting. I don't know. Again, it was all right. It was interesting enough for me to get through. But by the end, it was just like, meh. And because...
Like, you could have just read about it on Wikipedia.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, like I would have rather watched maybe like a
giving.
doco. And I want to give big props to the author though. Apparently she like stayed in the house where the murders happened as part of like her research, and like I think she did as good as she could. But it's, yeah, I don't know, it just didn't quite hit. So my other worst, which was, yeah, a lot worse. So it's called Pretty Is by Maggie Mitchell. My issue with this, so it's a thriller and it is about, it's about two girls, I think, or maybe one girl, I can't remember, but basically something happened to them. They were kidnapped when they were younger, I think, by this guy. And the book is kind of, you know, like, ooh, what happened? What did he do? And the thing is, with thrillers like this, when you really build up, like, oh my God, what happened? We're trying to figure out what happened. The answer to that has to be something really, really interesting, really bad, really, it's gotta be like a, oh, I can't believe that's what it was. It wasn't. It was a huge anticlimax.
Tell me.
I can't remember. It was...
Oh. Okay.
It was just like he didn't do anything to them, really. He just
abducted them. That seems weird.
Unspeakable, yeah. So it talks about unspeakable truths that haunt them still. Ooh. He didn't really do much. Like he did kidnap them, but
yeah, we're not dismissing kidnapping.
And that's
a big deal.
Exactly, but we already knew that at the start. We already kind of knew that had happened. I don't know.
Do you feel like it's almost like some authors are almost like censoring themselves and it ruins the story? Like they're getting worried about like, how bad do I make this? And again, I'm just like, all fiction is fantasy to me. In the sense that it's, you can be playing with real life stuff, and I'm not saying it's not relevant to real life, but it's all fantasy. Like that's okay. And I think there is some quote, and if we can find it, we can chuck it on the screen because I'm pretty sure it's by a black woman. And I can't remember what it is exactly, but she basically says like, if we're not free to play without censor in fiction, there's no safe place left to be a human.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
100%.
There's no safe place to be a human if we can't even let our stories run wild.
Exactly. It was like, it was much more, I think the answer was, it was much more of, I guess, a psychological trauma.
It needed to read like
but
that.
you kind of could have assumed that. You assumed that, okay, she got taken, and then once you found out she got taken, and that would fuck you up, but it had this reveal that to me just wasn't good enough of a reveal. It wasn't, I was like, wait, this is what I was waiting for?
Yeah.
And I think you're right. It's like I don't want this to, it's not like I'm saying like, oh, I wanted those girls to be really tortured, but kind of. Like,
yeah, but like if you're giving me
in the story
that's what.
Yeah, if you're like the whole book telling me like, oh, just you wait, then I need something.
Yeah.
Also, want to make sure it's known the writing of Pretty Is, Maggie Mitchell, was really, really good. The actual writing was amazing, and so throughout most of the book, I was pretty hooked and very interested in the characters and that sort of thing. It was just the end that let it down, but that unfortunately is a pretty significant part when it comes to thrillers especially. So look, I might look for other Maggie Mitchell books, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so my worst, I want to preface this by saying that I did read this entire book and I wish that I didn't, and I do love the authors. So my first worst of 2023, oh, I feel bad saying it, is Fate of a Royal by Megan Brandy and Amor Jones. Now I feel bad because I love these authors separately.
Oh, so they combined.
Yeah, so it's their first, I think it's their first like book together. It is paranormal, I think. Yeah, fantasy, paranormal. Again, I have to stress, I love these authors on their own. I've read multiple books by both these authors. Lots of like 5 stars, 4 stars, some 3 stars. This is the thing, right? When you read a lot, sometimes you're just not into a story. Sometimes you're just not into it because of where you're at. So it's not a reflection on them at all. But the story, I could not stand it. I kept reading because I was like, I have to see where this takes me. And it was just, again, spoilers, like if you think you might be into this, but I don't recommend. So she's a human, she's his fated mate. It's like meant to be hate to love, enemies to lovers kind of vibes. He's a gifted one, and you can't be fated to a human. So she's able to see things that she shouldn't be able to see. Turns out that she is the daughter of a really like evil guy that went crazy like 300 years ago or something. But then actually I think it was like she did something. I don't know, like it was just,
it wasn't gelling.
It wasn't gelling.
Yeah.
It was trying too hard to kind of be, it was over the top in a way that just didn't work for me. I hated the bully aspect, and I'm not against bully romances at all. Like I've definitely read bully romances I've given 5 stars to. This just, it didn't make sense. I mean that in like a literal way. Like you'd be reading one page to another and you'd be like, where are we now? Like, I'm confused. It just didn't track. And I just think maybe it didn't work having 2 authors. That's what I'm gonna put it down to. All right, so my other worst, and this feels like scandalous to say this out loud. And again, I love this author. I have read multiple books by this author. I have given 5 stars to these books. Like, I love it. But Caution to the Wind by Gianna Darling did not hit for 2 reasons. One, I can't stand, I'm not sure if the term is like fan servicing. So it's like it's book 7 in a very popular series. I have loved all of the books previously in the Fallen Men series, but there was just, I mean, for starters, this book is like 600 pages or something, 636 pages.
It's a lot.
I can't do, I think if you are writing such a long book when you're dealing with like a contemporary world, again, I'm questioning what's being put in here. Like, that's not necessarily a good sign. So right off the bat, it was like, oh, why is this so long? again, there was lots of stuff, like obviously everyone has all these beloved characters, and so I think we were getting cameos from them, it was being brought in. I just personally can't stand that, because if it felt like it wasn't genuine to the story, I was just like, why are you here? Why are you even saying this? We just kind of had these like monologue-y, you know, quote happy comments from characters we've loved, and it was irritating because it also felt like it was diminishing my feelings for these characters that I love, because it was like they weren't being themselves.
It's almost taking you out of the
world
of the book,
out of the world,
because you're it's highlighting that they are characters being influenced by outside readers.
Yes, exactly. And again, I also totally respect that Gianna Darling, you won't know this, but I am pretty sure, got hacked. So this book was meant to come out like a year or two ago, and she got massively hacked. She shut down like all of her social media. I think she got married at the same time. I'm not sure if the entire reason why it took so long for it to happen was because purely that. Like I think that happened. That must have been a really big deal, obviously, getting that sorted. She did a really awesome, like, I'm back bitches. Like she kind of came back with this release really intentionally. So that was awesome. And again, I love these characters. I love the story.
Series?
I love the world. No, like this book, like the 7th book, Caution to the Wind. Love the main characters, love their relationship, love kind of getting to see this different side of the fallen men world. I love that it brought in the triad. I loved all of the relationships in that. It was so good, but the whole book was built on the premise of, spoiler, the dude hating her for something she did, and it was totally fucking unfounded.
Those are our best and worst.